I'm ZSH Plays. Welcome to San Bernardino Zoo episode 50. It's been almost a year since we started this zoo, and to celebrate we'll be adding the animal you guys voted for in last episode's poll into the zoo, and much more besides. You may also have noticed that it's Christmas, and nothing says Christmas like sunshine and hippos, so I've got them some Christmas treats to play with today. They certainly seem to be enjoying them. Before we start building, I just want to say a big happy Christmas and a massive thank you for watching this past year, or for some of you even longer than that. It's been an amazing journey watching this zoo and this series grow, from the tiny acorns in January all the way through to where we are now. I thought I'd show off the zebras in the savannah as well, because these guys got really shortchanged in the cinematics last week. I got a few comments about that, so here they are, looking absolutely gorgeous. And both sides of this savannah habitat are going to receive new animals today. In the last episode, I asked you guys to vote for which animal you wanted to add into the rhino side of the habitat, and the ostrich took it. Over 3,000 of you voted. Thank you so much. The ostrich got 39% of the vote, and we're going to add them into the savannah right now. Alright, so we can't just throw some ostriches in here, we need to make some changes to the habitat to prepare for them. So the first thing that we're going to do is get one of their enrichment items in this forage box. I want this to sit in the little sneak that we made for the springbok, and we'll try and keep the ostriches and the springbok together away from the rhinos when they need to be. So we'll put that in there, and then we're going to do some work on the terrain to get this to sit in seamlessly. So we'll raise it on this side, and then we'll raise it around the edges like we always do, and just get a really nice natural looking little forage box in here for the ostriches to play around in. I really like the effect of this when it's done. There's just a sort of a slight raise in the land, and then some mulch that's been put down where the keepers will put food in for them to eat. And then we'll move on to the shelter and get that ready for the ostriches. So we'll put one of these feeders in on this side, and then we're going to use some dividers so that we have a side where the ostriches would stay and a side where the springbok would stay. So these are from the giraffe barn that we built last time. We're going to recolor them. That bright yellow is interesting in the giraffe house, but I don't think we need it again here. So we'll get this to a more of a sort of neutral grey colour, and then just reconfigure this so it's like a permanent barrier. I really like this design, which is taken from the zoo in Rotterdam, so I thought we'd use it again, trying to get as much continuity as possible between the two savannah habitats, so they look just like one habitat. So where we can, we'll reuse items. So we'll just shift a few things around here, and I think that's the dividers done. Get rid of a few pieces that we don't need, and that's the stable sorted. Then we'll move outside and get another enrichment item in here for the ostriches, nice and close to the viewing gallery so that the guests get good views of them. And once we've got the habitat ostrich ready, we're going to move to the area behind the big rocks that you see in the background there, and build a massive raised viewing gallery for guests and sort the entrance to this area out. Before we do that though, we've got some new inhabitants of the zoo to see. Realistic Malayan tapir. Yes, Frontier updated the model, so I thought I'd show you them in the zoo. They look absolutely amazing now, so much better than they did before. It makes me like this habitat even more now that we've got the proper tapir in here. Look at those snouts, absolutely amazing. Let's get back to the savannah and finish off the area for the guests so that the whole thing looks absolutely amazing. This path has been a mess since we built Hippo Falls, and it is time now that the savannah is going to be completed to get it looking good. So what I'm going to do is sort of segue from the forest foliage that we've had so far in Africa down to some savannah foliage where the savannah habitat is. So I put some of these collections of forest foliage in, and then we'll start editing them so that it blends nicely from one area to the other. If you missed last week's tutorial, this group of foliage is available as part of the Africa building kit in the building kits that I released onto the workshop last week, so you can go ahead and grab those if you want to use these in your zoo. So we'll just move the last of these plants over, and then we'll go to the other side of the path and start dressing up the sign for the savannah. Get loads more of this string grass in, and really transition from the forest foliage to the savannah foliage. We'll also extend the rock work that you see in the back there to cover up the bare terrain, and then we'll move on to the path itself. So just a bit of blending to get this to go nicely into that bed there, and then that black plastic strip that the game generates between paths, don't want that, so we're going to cover that up with some plaster. So we'll just get one of the thin plaster pieces, get this as low as we can so it doesn't look like a trip hazard, and then we'll blend this in with the colour tool and just get it as close as possible to the natural path that it's joining onto. And once we've done that, we get a really natural look where it joins on. Okay, onto the viewing gallery. So you may remember we discussed building a African restaurant here to overlook the savannah, and that's what I'm starting to build here. But while I was building it, I realized that although there is enough space to get a restaurant in here, it would be so close to the savannah, I don't think it would be practical for two reasons. Firstly, I think having that many guests up there, eating, drinking, and talking might bother the rhinos, because there'd be loads of people there all day long. And secondly, it's going to be so close to the savannah that I reckon you could probably smell the savannah from up here. And people are probably fine with that kind of thing when you're just viewing a habitat, but I don't think anyone wants to eat their food and smell a big herbivore habitat at the same time. So I decided instead to turn this into a big raised viewing gallery, which is going to still have guests up here and provide an amazing view over the savannah, but would be less busy, less noisy, and less foodie than a restaurant. It's still going to be a big gathering spot for the guests. I'm going to have loads of stuff up here for them, as well as the view. We're going to have some benches, tables, vending machines, education, and a toilet as well. And I'm going to bring in some of the designs from the water terraces that we also used in the Palm Cafe to get a really nice, modern, clean look to this area. So these circular path motifs from the water terraces, still one of my favourite things in the zoo. So wherever we need something like this, I try and use them. I think this is the third time that we've used them, and we'll be using them again in various other spots as well. But we're going to make some very subtle steps up here so that the guests can get up to the viewing gallery from the main path, and then we'll just do some adjusting to make it look absolutely perfect, because the terrain is raised here and it's sort of flat in most of the water terraces where we used it before. Just need to move a few pieces about and we'll get this looking perfect. It's these little details that take ages that are really worth doing so you can get a nice clean look at the end of it. The smooth flowing lines that you see here are influenced by one of my favourites, well, probably my favourite Planet Zoo builder, Remnant. Definitely check out his channel if you haven't already. He only posts about once every 6 months, but when he does, it is well worth watching. Alright, that's the detailing pretty much done, I think. Let's move on to the centre of this area and start copying more of these circles across so that we can fill it in. And then we'll tackle the wall. You can see the back of these mud walls is nowhere near as attractive as the front, and I don't want those to be visible. So we're going to cover those up with some more of the log walls that we originally built for Gorilla Mountain. We'll just copy these all the way along this wall here, adjusting the height every now and again to make it look a bit more random. And then we can get some paths in. So we need some hidden paths in here so that the guests are going to be able to actually walk along this viewing gallery and use it. And we also need paths to put the picnic tables on that we're going to have up here as well. And now it's time for Franchise Masters. So if you want a smooth, beautiful viewing gallery for the guests, don't bother building it yourself. Let the game build it for you. Select the glass barrier, make sure habitat perimeter is turned off, and then we can just draw that in. So we're going to get this into the right angle. We'll make sure that we have curved glass turned on. The first piece that you place down will still be straight. That sets the angle that the curve is going to come from, and then you can start building the glass around where you need it. So put that first straight piece in, and then you can start curving the rest of the barriers. So we're going to follow the edge of this circle here really carefully so we get a nice smooth barrier. And we'll just build it all the way around till we get to the building at the end, which is going to house the toilet and some educational material. And then once we've got there, we'll select all of it, pick a nice height for it. We don't want it to be too high, but obviously we want to stop people jumping over it as well. Once we've got it to there, we'll use one of those logs that we've been using throughout this area as a divider between each pane of glass and get rid of the sort of default metal divider there. Once we've got that into exactly the right place, you want to make sure that the glass is hitting the center of the log so it looks realistic. We will then copy this one log all the way down. We're basically going to build this entire thing out of just one piece and one barrier, which is nice and simple. So that's that done. The last thing to do is delete that first straight piece of glass. And now, if you turn curved back on, we can get this perfectly curved into that log as well. One final adjustment so the log isn't too close to the edge of the circle, and that is our viewing done. Hope you find that useful. Back to the build. Next thing we're going to do is get a covered area at the end where we can place our toilet. So we're going to use the Hippo viewing gallery, such a nice roof taken from Fort Worth Zoo, the roof, and then Cincinnati Zoo, the floor, although we'll be getting rid of the hippo footprints, don't need those in this part of the zoo. We'll use two of them to get an interesting shape, and that'll give us plenty of room to place the toilet. And then we can move on to the benches and tables. So there will be vending machines here. If people want to sit here and eat, they can, but we're not going to force them to sit here and eat by building one of the zoo's restaurants here. We'll get some signage in as well with the banner styles that we've used throughout the zoo. Got a nice shot of the savannah at sunset here. which should entice people into this area. So we'll have 2 of these, one on either side of the entrance. That should frame it really nicely and let people know that there is viewing up here as well as down on ground level. Alright, I've placed an edited version of our African toilet under the roof that we just put in. So now we need to extend the circular pathing out to that and get that at exactly right the height. So we'll get a little step down here and then start copying a few pieces over so we get a seamless transition between the 2 different styles of path. And that means we can still keep the sort of log step that goes into the toilet there. We'll drop some habitat information boards on here. They're actually too far away from the habitat to function, so we're going to use just normal billboards for this. They look really nice. And then I want a centerpiece for this area. So what I'm going to do is put an African Jeep in the middle up on some rocks. That's quite a cool little motif you see a lot in zoos. I actually forgotten that we'd created some custom Jeeps for San Bernardino Zoo back in the islands. So we'll switch this out for one of those in a second. The sort of covered Jeep with the logo on the side. I really like those. There we go. And now time to visit another area of the zoo that's been improved, the sloth bears. So I mentioned in this episode that I wasn't happy with the planting. I ran out of time with it being an early access build, so I thought I'd show you the completed habitat now. We've got the climbing working, we filled the habitat with grass, and I'm really happy with how this looks now. On to the final part of today's episode. We're going to be adding another animal into the savannah. Earlier this year I visited Artis in Amsterdam, which is a really, really cool zoo, and they did something that I really liked in the first habitat that you see when you come into the zoo. It's a habitat for Arabian oryx, and mixed in with them are meerkats, and they're just sort of running around this habitat, and I thought it was such a cool idea. Even though we've already got meerkats in the zoo, I thought I'd add them into the savannah as well for a little bit of interest. So we're going to make them a little area down here. They're going to have access to the whole habitat, but we'll keep them mainly in this area by putting their enrichment items and their food and their burrow in here. And there'll be a perfect little view into it from the viewing gallery here. I only just thought of doing this, and the habitat was not designed to keep meerkats in the first place. They'll be straight over these rocks, I reckon. So what we're going to do is add some hot wire around the edges of the habitat just to keep the meerkats in and make sure that they're not going to start trying to climb the rocks. So we're going to make some little bits of hot wire using a few of these tiny pieces here. This is the grasslands pole, use this one all the time. We'll get a couple of these in, and then some of the other pieces that you see at the end. This is based on some hot wire I saw, I think, at Knowsley Safari Park in their meerkat habitat, so it should be pretty realistic. Only problem is we've now got to place it manually all the way around this habitat, and not only is the habitat in a regular shape in terms of the overall shape of the habitat, but the terrain goes up and down all the way around it because I roughened it to make it look more interesting. So we're going to have to move these up and down, rotate them, and there's no easy way to do this. We're just going to have to manually place them around the entire habitat. So I'll spare you the pain of that. This is the last piece, and that is the savannah complete. Let's check it out. I think you guys made a great choice with the ostrich in the poll. They had such a splash of colour. I don't know if black or white are technically colours, but you know what I mean. It's such a distinction from the browns and greys of the rhino and the springbok. I think they look absolutely amazing walking around in here. And when they start running around as well, we've even got some little babies already. And they're not the only animal that we've added today, of course. So let's go and check out the meerkats in the other side of the savannah. Here's one just coming out of its burrow. We've just got the 2 in here at the moment, but I'm pretty sure we're going to have a new pack very soon. I've moved across one of the males from our original meerkat habitat and bought a new female. There we go, just leaving the burrow to explore his habitat for the first time. It looks really cool when they're running around in here, especially when they go on little adventures like this over to the other side of the habitat, past the zebras and the giraffe. But no matter where they go, they tend to come back to this area periodically so they can get to their burrow and the water and the food. And that ensures that the guests will get a good view of them here. I think it's fine having 2 meerkat habitats. Lots of zoos do it. I think at one point London Zoo actually had 3 meerkat habitats. So there's a good precedent for it. Let's check out our viewing gallery as well. As annoying as it was to have to change my plans, I'm glad I didn't go with the restaurant here. I think we are much better served by this viewing gallery. And the view from up here is pretty spectacular, as you can see. We've got our new ostriches there. We've got a rhino. If you look really close, you can even see the latest inhabitant. The rhinos have had babies. Here he is. What a little cutie he is. This place is really full now. We'll take one look at the whole savannah as well. This has instantly become one of my favourite spots in the zoo. I think it looks so good, and it's going to look even better once we've got elephant habitat surrounding it, which you can see through the fences. That's episode 50. Thank you so much for your inputs. Great choice with the ostrich. Let's take a quick look at where we started today, and here is where we are now with the savannah completely finished. That sort of ugly brown area in the middle has finally been replaced by proper paths and a viewing gallery. Absolutely loving that. Thank you so much for watching as always, and thank you for watching this year. I will see you next week in 2024, where we will be returning to our new Indian forest for a very exciting build there. Thanks to our Explorers Club members for joining as well. Hit the join button on the channel if you want to see your name here. We are well into the second side of the Explorers Club monolith now. Thanks for watching. Bye.